We needed like $2,500. So I took out the last $2,000 in the bank, got in my car, drove to Atlantic City, and like knowing that I needed to double that. I basically needed to make, I needed to come home with $4,500. Got like $4,000 and then proceeded to lose it all.
What do you remember from visiting New York's garment district before you graduated?
It was an awesome place, 1996. It's fascinating to think about. 1980, I think it was like 95% of the apparel worn in the United States was manufactured in the United States. By 1996, the time that I started Under Armour, it was 50% of apparel used in the US was produced in the US. So let me correct my math on these two. 5 years later, it was down to less than 10%. Today, it's less than 1% at best. And this isn't some ambition of how do we get the manufacturing district back or manufacturing back to the US, because I spent the first 5 or 6 years of starting Under Armour on a soapbox, being proud of the fact that we made our products, from Baltimore to Bel Air, Ohio, to Ephrata, Pennsylvania, to Allentown, Pennsylvania. And I didn't know anything about manufacturing when I'd started UA, but I'd heard about this place called the Garment District in New York City. So I got in my 1991 Ford Explorer, drove up to 34th and 7th Avenue, parked my car, and started walking around and just trying to find, I've got this synthetic material. Like, is there more stuff like this? Because I bought this first sample, ripping the content label out of my compression shorts that I wore at Maryland. Took them to a local fabric store called Minnesota Fabrics or something in Beltsville, Maryland, just next to College Park. Found this material that fit the idea I had, made my first 7 prototypes, tried them out on my teammates, and realized this is something better than a short sleeve cotton t-shirt in the summer and a long sleeve cotton t-shirt in the winter that doesn't get wet and soaked, and nobody ever thought about apparel. Apparel never been part of the consideration for, is this something that athletes would want that's a better solution? I'd gone to a local tailor in Maryland, had the first 7 or 8 to sort of proof of concept. Now I was going to go to scale and build 500 shirts. Found a manufacturer in the old NBC building, the National Biscuit Company. Supposed to take 2 weeks to make my shirts. It took like, 2 months to get it, back from them. Anyway, I had my first run of product in New York City, where I took those first 500 shirts, and between my high school team, St. John's, there was 11 guys signed Division I scholarships for my high school team. 4 of them made it to the NFL. I think 2 of them won Super Bowls. The 13 plus guys at Fork Union, plus the friends of friends. One of my founding partners, Ryan Wood, at Under Armour, Colorado to Fork Union Military Academy, went to Youngstown State, transfers to Arizona State, gets in rooms with Jake Plummer. And so it was like this network of people that I had. His high school best friend was a guy named Tony Baselli, the first #1 draft pick for the Jacksonville Jaguars. So like that was basically the genesis of Under Armour. It wasn't like a clear product idea. I was coming out of school or coming through school, and I'm like, I know 50, 60 guys that are playing in the NFL. It wasn't like I had this great idea, what do I do? It started with the idea, which is always the line that I give to young people, to kids. Tell me something smart. Like, what can I do to, be a great entrepreneur? And my easiest advice is always just like, utilize your network. Well, what does that mean? The person on the left or right of you, they may look like they're just the kid that, eats nuts all the class or picks their nose or something else, but they may be the next Fortune 500 CEO. They may be the next, keep those relationships fresh. And that's where my relationships were with these group of individuals who had made it to the highest level of the sport that I aspired to be a part of. And recognizing that, these 60 athletes were, the best use was not me calling them and saying, hey, can I borrow $300 from you? Congratulations, you made it to the NFL. It was, hey, I went to New York, I made these shirts, I got about 500 of them, and I put about 60 care packages together. I sent them to everybody I knew. I asked guys, can you also give me the names? Who's your equipment manager? When you were at Florida State, who was your equipment manager at Miami? Who's your equipment manager at USC? I put packages of 3 t-shirts together for everybody that I knew, and just said, hey, this is Plank. There's this company I'm working for. Because if I said it was me, they'd be like, oh, bull. What is this thing? Is this real or not? So I was always kind of used like this mystical, there's some bigger force,
Explain why you had 2 business cards.
One business card said Kevin Plank President, another business card said Kevin Plank Sales Manager. And so to any customer, I'd always give them the Kevin Plank Sales Manager business card. The reason for that is because when they'd hit you and say, you know, we're going to need a better number. How do we negotiate this? I'm like, geez, I'd love to give you a bigger number, but the old lady back in D.C. would never go for it. So I'm sorry, my number is firm. And then you needed the president card because when I talked to our suppliers, our fabric mills, our manufacturers, they needed to know that the buck stopped someplace and that like they're going to get paid, and I was the one that was going to do it for them. So firm handshake, again, look him in the eye. Kevin Blankley, yeah, you'll get your money.
You upgraded the 91 Ford Explorer to a 94 Ford Bronco at some point, which also similarly got a ton of use, right?
Yeah. 53,000 miles those first 2 years, because at 23 starting my company, 22, 23, I wasn't old enough to rent a car. So I'd fly to Atlanta and I tried doing this, excuse me, can you help me? This is life before Uber. And so I tried working it out with Hertz. I tried working it out with budget rent a car. Nobody would cut me a break. From the 25 years old is when the insurance kicks in, so you're not allowed to rent a car. So I realized I'm just gonna have to drive everywhere. I'd go to, you know, UVA, Virginia, Virginia Tech, you know, down to South Carolina, stop through Marshall, like just map these routes of how am I going to go visit, you know, 10, 15, 20 schools in a trip, and try to make, you know, one team in the morning, one team in the afternoon. But I realized, like when I sent out those packages for my friends, I was like, do me a favor, I sent you 3 t-shirts. You know, try this product. Wear it under your pads. And if you like it, please give one to each guy in the locker next to you. And if they like it and you want more, tell your equipment manager and have them call me. And I'll never forget when the equipment manager, I went to our equipment manager at Maryland, Ron O'Ringer, and I just said, hey Ron, if I wanted to sell this product, like how does it work? And he goes, well, you talk to me. I said, what does that mean? He's like, I'm in charge of a budget of, you know, $1 million, $1.5 million to build uniforms and bring them in. I'm like, really? Like, you guys do the laundry every day. It was like, oh no, this is now, and now it's a full-blown administrative job. And back then it was a little more of like, get them dry. But the pitch that we had for the equipment managers was, A, this is a much better product for your athletes, this works, it's great. But the other thing that worked and made Under Armour relevant as to how it grew so quickly was the fact that by putting synthetic in the washing machine, these guys basically had to stay there until all the laundry was done every night. And so we could get them out of there basically an hour earlier, because Under Armour would dry in the dryer like this versus, you know, sitting around waiting for soaking wet cotton t-shirts to dry.
Did you kind of think you were done when you checked your bank account and there was only $1,500 left?
Yeah, it was more like negative $1,500, okay. But...
I mean, did you kind of deep down think that was probably it?
Well, that was a longer story. So I'd had about $2,000 in the bank that day.
Lots of credit cards?
Yeah, about 5 different credit cards, totaling about $40,000. So my initial $16,000 in seed money, to $40,000 in credit cards, to, you know, friends and family. And at one point, I'm selling, you know, a point in the company for $1,000. And it was like, I had one guy that was a friend of mine. I was like, I need $10,000. And they're like, oh, do I want to invest in you or not? And they're like hemming and hawing about it. Like, you know what? I'm going to make the investment. I'll give you the 10 grand. Great. I'm going to need the money now. I'm gonna need that now. He's like, okay, I'll fill out a check then right now. I'm like, I mean, I need you to like come with me to the bank. We're gonna need to like deposit it right now. Have you sign the check over if that's okay? Like, it needs to be clear by 2 o'clock. So it was one of those, and they turned me down. But there was one time that I went to the bank and I'm like, you know, I used to sit every night with a big blue checkbook on my lap. And I'd call the bank, see what the balance, how many checks had cleared. This is before digital banking. So I was constantly in this. I think I'm going to get this other check. It'll come in on Thursday. I'll get this other check. It'll come in on Friday. And one day I was like, I'm just short, and I need to make, you know, my payroll, which was only, you know, myself, Ryan Wood, and Kip Fulks, my original partners within Under Armour. And it was like Thursday. It was like Thursday afternoon. I'm like, we're short. We need like $2,500. So I took out the last $2,000 in the bank, got in my car, drove to Atlantic City, and like knowing that I needed to double that. I basically needed to make, I needed to come home with $4,500. Got like $4,000 and then proceeded to lose it all. And to like know what broke feels like. So this must have been a year into the company, around 1997. I mean, I was broke like there was no money. I was now short of probably about $4,000 short of all those checks that were gonna come through. I had no money in my car, and this is back when we used to have change. Like, there was no quarters left, and I'd gone through the dimes too. And like the nickels, like anything silver was gonna get a look from me. but I couldn't even pay the toll at the Delaware Memorial Bridge coming home. And what happens when you can't pay the toll at a toll house, they stop the line of traffic, the person comes out, they write down your license number, they write down your license plate. It's incredibly embarrassing, like one of the lowest points. And driving back, I had nowhere to go. And so I went to my mother's house. I'm like, I need dinner. And to do this was like demonstrating the love of my mother. She's a terrible cook, you know? Wonderful woman, awful cook. So knowing that I'm going there for dinner was not a good sign. So I show up and she's like, how's everything going? What's going on with the company? And I'll never forget. Anything positive you say to somebody, they're going to tell one or two people. Anything negative you say, they're going to tell 12 to 15 people. So I was always really tight with that list. And so even my mom, I didn't want her talking to my brothers, and I didn't want to hear like, how's everything going? And I'm like, it's going great. Just signed, 3 more schools. We just, Georgia Tech's on board. We got this one on board, and I'll never forget. It was a day where I haven't wept a lot in my life, but I certainly wept on that day sitting in my car going, you blew it, you blew it, you blew it. You chose the wrong thing.
What's that place like when you're in that mindset? Like,
I blew it? Mm-hmm. It's a terrible place. It's doubt. It's disbelief. It's vulnerability, which I'd say is a weakness, but today I know it's a strength. But like learning from that place, like I screwed up. I made the wrong decision. I was thinking about a couple different things I could have done after school, and I chose this one, and it hasn't worked out, and so now I'm broke. What am I going to do?
Go back to Prudential or
yeah, I had
Prudential life job?
$40,000 job offer from Prudential. So I ended up going to, at the time I kept the P.O. box, and I was like, I'll just go check the mail. And I walk in there, I open the P.O. box, and there's a check for $7,800 from Georgia Tech, and I'm like, what was I talking about? Back in business, let's go get this thing. And I promise, it was the last time that I ever doubted, like, did I make the right choice? From that day forward, I was like, take the ball, and we're gonna run as hard as we can and go build an incredible company.
You mentioned your mom's cooking. And how about the Fruit Loops and lasagna you lived on with Sal and Debbie?
Oh, that was an awful experience. The guy who really taught me manufacturing, because I'd gone from, I was in DC at the time, I found a manufacturer up here in Baltimore. I had another friend who was starting a business named Dan Prunzik, great player at Maryland. He ends up pointing me to this place called AAA in the USA, which is in Bel Air, Ohio, which sits right on the Ohio, West Virginia, Pennsylvania border. So I pick up the phone, and this guy, Sal, he's like, Kevin, this is Sal. I'm from the Bronx, right? The kind of guy that started every sentence with, I've been doing this 35 years, you don't know shit, kid. It's just like, every sentence would start that way. And he's like, where are you making your stuff? And at the time, my manufacturer in Baltimore was giving me the runaround, and I couldn't really get them to order, and they had an order for me, and I'm like, where's my stuff? He's like, we got a bigger order from Reebok. We're not making for you anymore. I was in DC. It's like 9:45 in the morning. Drove to Baltimore, picked up everything I had, loaded it in the back of that car, drove to Bel Air, Ohio that afternoon. Didn't have any place to stay. Sat there working out patterns with Sal, the line supervisor, this woman named Ella Mae Holmes, who actually still works at UA today. And we sat there working on patterns till about 7, 8 o'clock at night. And he said, why don't you come stay at the house? I said, great. And I go to this house. And Sal, it was like this little house in Bel Air, Ohio. It had these like paper thin walls. And Sal was like a performer or something, but it was it was a lonely night of sleeping on some couch like this, listening to Sal and Debbie, I guess make relations or something. But it was like, it was kind of like holding my pillowcase. You're going, this is a very awkward experience. And so, but love was in the air. And Under Armour was bound to get built from something as aspirational as that. So no baby that night, but certainly a brand was built or born.